Mercedes Mone on her way to AEW, but WWE still on the mind. We're going to talk about it and more in just a second. So stay tuned. This is WrstlXtra.
Yo. This is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate. Always joined by my trios team, the Real House of Black, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will. Who is back? And the omnipresent one, that is the Professor Gerard Bonner. Mex, before we get into everything, I'm going to talk to you first. You were missing last week. I didn't give you the time off. I don't know where you went. Why you went in? I'm joking. Just let the people know where you were, what you were up to, and how it was.
Yeah, myself and the boys over at Wrestlings, we were hosting, as we do every month, host the Hustle Wrestling show down in Hackney Wick in London. It has become something that was just, giving, I guess, the guys that are kind of learning the ropes just from very early on, early days of Hustle, people were literally counting on one hand. This is my third match. This is my fourth match. And It's now spiraled into, I guess, one of the most fun, chaotic wrestling shows during the week that you get. The crowd, the atmosphere is brilliant because it's literally a split of people that know wrestling, want to come and watch wrestling. And then like Hackney, for those that don't know, is kind of like the cool gentrified area within London. So you're getting a lot of people that are just having an evening drink in the bar. They're coming in after work, know nothing about wrestling, and end up loving it, end up coming regulars in the audience. So a really fun atmosphere. It was great to see a lot of people there, a lot of, even in the way of black stars that we're seeing coming up. There was what is her name? Because of
Rio?
Not Rio.
No, it's not Rio.
Ronnie
Knox.
Ronnie Knox was there. Ronnie Knox opened the show with another young guy. I forget his name. A young Jamaican boy. That's like, this is his very early start into wrestling as well. First ever cage match is happening next month. So yeah, it was a privilege to get down there. Don't get down there too often because of my commitments to WrstlXtra. But it was lovely to get down there.
He called him sick.
Yeah, it was lovely to get down there last week.
Love it. Moving on to the topic of today, as Mex introduced at the top of the show. Our dear friend Mercedes Mone, we're talking big business here, is almost confirmed 99%. Obviously, it hasn't been confirmed 100% that she's on her way to AEW. She'll turn up. Is it big business this week? On
tomorrow
night.
Tomorrow.
But there has been over the weekend. She spoke about her imminent return to WWE. She said it's not over. She will definitely return to WWE at some point. My first question is, and whoever wants to take it can take it. My first question is it a negative thing that she said that with her returning to AEW literally in about 24 hours?
Gerard, go for it.
Let me start by saying shout out to Evan T. Mack, formerly of WWE and The Bump and good friend of WWT, who conducted this interview on his podcast, which is amazing. It's funny, the clip that you're talking about that's got everybody talking was not originally published on the first version of the podcast. It was released kind of as this extra, and it's very interesting that it was done that way. I can imagine why it was left out of the podcast for the very reasons that we're talking about it now, right? To that, I will say it reminds me of a great song from the late, great Ray Charles that said, Georgia on my mind, right? In this case, WWE on my mind, okay? No matter how I try to get away, I just can't. Now, I think, for some people are already like, I can't believe that you're about to go to AEW and all you're talking about is going to WWE. To that end, I would say first and foremost, as history has shown us, we won't believe it until we see it, right? So until we see her walk out on that AEW ramp tomorrow night, that's when I'll fully believe that she's all elite. Sure, all the signs are pointing to it, but we know sometimes things don't happen the way we think, or sometimes we've talked ourselves into believing something that maybe never was ever there. There's that.
Okada said WWE was one of those.
Exactly, and we got burned by that this week, right? So that. The second thing is we have no idea what capacity she's considering returning to WWE. When you're talking about unfinished business, as fans tend to think about it as what to do in the ring. But if you look at WWE, she's done everything. She's held every championship, tag team and singles. So what is there left for her to do? My thought is if she's returning to WWE, she might be best suited in a role that you don't see very many women or women of color, and that is in an administrative space, in a creative space, perhaps mentoring, producing, maybe even in an executive role. That's a possibility. The third piece is, should she show up to AEW, we have no idea what kind of contract we're looking at. So, we tend to think when somebody shows up in a space like that, it's, however many years, however many billion yen, shout out to Okada, like all the things, right? When you get 2 billion yen, you are really doing something. Anyway, Mercedes may be showing up on an appearance basis. We don't know what the terms of her contract may be. And so if she's already talking about WWE, we don't know how long she's agreed, if she has agreed to something with AEW. Again, we never thought that with Trinity signing to TNA back in May of last year, that 9 months later, she'd be back in WWE. So there's a lot that we don't know. I won't get upset at all. And it's kind of amazing that there are people that are upset when the same people have been clamoring for her to return to WWE anyway. So I don't know. Either way, I'm here for the ride, and we'll get some of our questions answered likely tomorrow night.
For sure. Next.
So with Mercedes, and this situation, like this, and again, shout out to Evan T-Mac, brilliant guy. Met him for the first time last year at WrestleMania. Showed me and the guys lots of love. And with this interview, it was just great to have the timing of it and everything. With what she said, right? It's completely crazy of her to say that. And I'm going to contradict myself. In the same instance, it's a bit of a nothing statement. Now, it's crazy in the sense that, basically on the eve of you joining All Elite Wrestling, you have said that I'm going to go back there someday. You see what I mean? And at the same time, we've heard people in the business say, never say never. Like maybe her choice of wording wasn't maybe the best. And never say never might have been more like, well, yeah, we all say never, or something along that. The doors never closed. Or I don't know. She could have said something maybe worded better. That's what sent the internet into a frenzy. So it's something massive because of the timing. At the same time, it can just be like, you never know, sort of thing. I loved Evan's reaction in terms of he's like all giddy, like a little schoolgirl, like, come home. Yes. Which is amazing. But it comes back to this thing that we discussed. I've been banging on about this ever since the likes of Jade left. Perception. It is the perception, and whether they do it by purpose or not, people are dragging AEW's general perception through the mud every time they do something like this. Jade left, came to WWE. First thing that came out of her mouth 4 times in the interview, the professionalism, how great this place is, everything is so organized and all of that kind of stuff. Perception. Jade isn't someone that is like, crazy levels of ability in the ring, but also it's the perception that WWE have come and taken this person that was en route to being a megastar in AEW with, in-ring stuff, mainstream stuff. Like, they took one of AEW's, homegrown talents. Perception. Now we have the likes of Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, basically making it seem like AEW is a stepping stone in her returning to WWE. Like, cool, these lot didn't want to pay me what I wanted. This guy is. Let me come here. Let me prove my worth. And then one day I'm gonna return over there. Maybe one day they'll see the value in me and pay me what I want. And I'm sure the likes of Tony Khan or whomsoever won't say nothing to her about this statement. They're probably very angry at it, but they probably won't say anything to her. But the women in the locker room must be thinking, you know, in a week's time, in 2 weeks' time, I'm gonna have to lay down for her. I'm gonna have to do the pin, take the job for her. And she's just using this as a stepping stone while I'm trying to get my career off the ground. Like, you can't help but think that's the way it's kind of seen and come out. But I think it's really just this whole perception thing. Like WWE, I think for sure would pull her if it was the other way around sort of thing. I think she'll be pulled up on something like that in the WWE. And that could just be two different ways of, you know, how Tony Khan operates and how, you know, somewhere as established as WWE operate. But it's just something AEW didn't need. You know, they've created a whole show around her ultimately. They just didn't need this. And it's a shame because I am looking forward to her. I've come to terms that it is going to happen. I'm looking forward to her. I'm counting down dream matches and stuff we're going to get. But yeah, the perception is just, no matter how many big guys they sign, how many banger of matches they're giving us, it's the perception that is just not there right now.
So here's my next question based off what you've just said, actually, Mix. You know, we talk about the perception, we talk about AEW being a stepping stone. And you say that there may be many in the locker room who would see that as a negative. But do we have to be honest and think to ourselves that there are many, especially those who came from WWE, who weren't quite getting, you know, the attention or the storylines or the push that they felt they deserved, or the fans felt they deserved? The likes of Amiro, Malachi Black, and a few other names you can mention. Would it not be accurate to say that the majority of those guys would be thinking the exact same thing?
I mean, you would say so. To be honest, not initially. I don't think initially. I think, you know, obviously they were out of work. Some of those names you mentioned, they go over there. It's like, right, we've got somewhere that is paying us the same, if not better, than what we were just getting. Also on TV, it's more looser in terms of the way we can work, what we can say. There's less work because we don't have to do like the whole circus stuff of the weekends and everything. Like, this is pretty much a sweet deal until they keep signing everyone and they've got 200 people on the roster. And using free agents from, you know, all their partnerships and all these other kind of stuff. So then it's just like, well, yeah, do I change game plan now? Do I use this as an opportunity to showcase myself and get on TV and get over to WWE, get back there in some people's cases? I mean, you know, everywhere in everyone's life, no matter if it's wrestling or anything else, something can always be a stepping stone to something else. I think it's just the way you present it, you know, and maybe keep your cards close to your chest. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give my absolute for this company whilst I'm here. And we probably will get some type of mission statement by Mercedes when she lands, like, you know, I'm all elite, I'm gonna do this, rah rah rah. Listen, love, we already heard what you said, so you know, I don't know how many people are gonna believe it at this point, but like, it's a case of, you know, that's what you would want. That's what Tony Khan would want. As long as you're here under contract, you're giving your all for here. Whether your ulterior motive is then to go elsewhere, return elsewhere. Elsewhere could even be Hollywood for some of these people. You don't know. But it's just how you package it when you are there and perform when you are there.
For sure. As you know, as I said earlier, you know, it's almost 99% set that she's going to appear at Big Business tomorrow. I'm sure there wouldn't be the whole BOSS term in the background if it wasn't already a done deal and it wasn't like kind of negotiations. But Gerard, how do we think would be the best way to you know, present Mercedes when it comes to Big Business tomorrow? What is it? A match? Is it an appearance? Is it an attack? Is it you know, something like that. What's the best way to present and make sure this goes as perfect as it possibly can?
I think in this particular case, since there's already the rumor and overwhelming thought, if you really want to get the best response, you do it as a surprise, as big of a surprise. And what I mean by that is how they brought Okada in last Wednesday is a great example. You know, nobody saw it coming. And so when it happened, it was just like, whoa, is this a real thing? You know? So I think and especially with AEW's core audience, which tend to be the IWC, they tend to be the people that read the dirt sheets and all of the other things. If you want that kind of reaction, you have to do it that way. You don't want to set up. I mean, this isn't like a Punk situation, you know, where, you know, boom, we have Punk. All right. And I think the next question is, where do you insert her on the card? True. Does it make sense to put her automatically in the title picture? I'm never a fan of that. And, you know, Deonna Purrazzo is a great example of that. You know, here you get a fresh star, a 3-time world champion who comes in her first title shot, she loses. So what does that do for her? So I think Mercedes, you could argue, is probably the most high-profile female signing that they will have at this point. They have to handle this right. You know, you don't want to put her in there against the wrong people. You don't want to have the kind of debut that would not be so memorable. So I think they have a situation where, you know, you insert her into something and she shocks the world, because it's already a shock of having her aligned with somebody, you know, like that would be kind of wild. So, you know, the possibilities are endless. I just want them to do this right, because they've not had anything quite this big before.
Mex, I know that you're secretly in the writers' room of AEW, because you always seem to get everything right. What do you think? How do you think they'll present Mercedes tomorrow, if they do? If they do?
Yeah, I agree with Gerard. Like, I'm never a fan of bringing someone in and giving them the title, basically title shot immediately. But I do believe they should be debuted in the main event space. Now, it's difficult with the AEW women's division, because it's like, if you're not the title picture, there isn't anyone else that is considered like main event. So, you know, there's people. Serena Deeb made a comment some weeks ago about that she's the final boss. So Serena Deeb could be thing, although that would be a great match. I don't think it's the kind of TV kind of entertainment level that would kind of get people excited from the jump, but it'll be a great match wherever that match is to happen. I think Britt Baker could be someone that is, you know, TV ready, Mercedes TV ready. That's have some great stuff. Have a first match at that Dynasty in April, that pay-per-view they're doing. I think that could be good. One thing that this is my wild cards that came into my head last week. I watched the Okada segment, right? When he aligned with Young Bucks, I kid you not, I was standing here giving a standing ovation to my TV screen, because it was I just thought this is excellent. Like, no one predicted this. Like, this is just such a foolproof way to do it. And then it came across my head, what if Mercedes joins these lot?
Like, that would make sense.
They're the bosses, they're the EVPs.
That would make sense.
Everything is there. Like,
wow.
Like, and we haven't seen her. Like, we've been in factions and tag teams here and there, kind of stuff. Like, a high level tag team. Like, she's already a complete fangirl of Okada.
Right.
Like, so Okada's in there as the main
stood
piece.
Together with belts in hand and all that.
Okada's in there as the main piece. You got the Bucks in there as well as the annoying official EVPs and stuff, and Mercedes as their top women's talent. This is the new elite. Like,
I love that.
Would be great.
Wow,
I love that. That's brilliant, dude. That's brilliant.
In the meantime, they could probably, you know, try raise the profile of the other women around the card. So by the time she starts having matches with these guys, you know, then like they can just use tomorrow night as a means to kind of maybe initially give her like a big pop and all of that kind of stuff. Just open the show maybe, and then maybe in the main event, that's probably where they might do the trios match with Okada and the Bucks and Pac and Eddie Kingston. And if she comes out and kind of aligns with them in the main event, so she can get her pop at the beginning of the show, and by the end of the show, she's a heel with the rest of them. I think we could be off to the races if they do something like that.
Wow. Apart from that now being top of the list, the other thing that I had in mind, I think the Serena Deeb one is nice because of the wording that she used. The other one for me that kind of would make sense would be for her to get involved in some way with the whole, like probably saving Ruby Soho, for example, because then it would set her up with Saraya. For
Saraya's
me,
the shout for sure.
yeah, Saraya's the only person who is active, who's relevant and been active recently, that would give us a big enough match for people to talk about and buy tickets for and all that kind of stuff. Others, Surindi, yes, a good match in ring, but would it put Bonds on the seat? Not necessarily. There are others who fit in the exact same place who would, you're thinking to yourself, yes, I would like to see that match, but it's not like must see when you first hear it, basically. But I think for me, Saraya is probably the only one person. If Britt Baker was active, she'd be the only other person for me. I can't think of anyone else. Toni Storm would be, but she's caught up with Deonna Purrazzo. I think it would be wrong for them to insert Mercedes into that. But then as well, as great as Toni Storm is and is doing, I don't know if that would be must see straight away. They would have to build something to get to that. But the idea of her joining the Elite and standing there as a fourth member, I can see Nicholas and Matthew standing either side, a Carter at the back, Mercedes in front of. Oh man,
that would be
and in the robes as well that they were wearing on Collision. Wow.
Yeah. And it would allow her to continue what she started in Japan.
Yes.
I think she needs to be able to do that. The other name that I thought of that would be probably a good first opponent for her would be Thunder Rosa. I think that would be a good spot. I mean, I think she would win that, but I think it would be challenging enough and first time ever ish enough that we go, yeah. But I'm totally sold on this idea with the Elite. So Will Washington and crew, I hope you guys are watching.
For real.
Apparently they said with the Okada one, they've planned that since January. Like that was the plan. That when WWE were interested in Okada, like they just said, we're gonna outbid them. There is no way we're missing out on Okada. So they were always prepared to offer more money because they already kind of thought that this is what we're going to do when he comes.
Phenomenal stuff. And the beauty of that whole storyline, I think I read it on I think it's Wrestling Republic, is that they've already set up so many things already with Kenny coming back, with Paige out of the Elite, like so many things. And obviously he's already feuding with Eddie Kingston as well. So there's that. So it's been done very, very well. Very well. Speaking of big business, the one thing that I know that we all feel that we're missing is Swerve. Swerve's not on the card. It's a little surprising. We're going to see Samoa Joe defend against Wardlow. We were expecting that after the triple threat, with Swerve not being pinned, that he would insert himself in that in some way. We're not seeing that whatsoever. I don't think we have any idea of as what Swerve's next move even is. Mex, just give me your thoughts on this whole situation and how do we get Swerve back in that picture?
I don't think he's left the picture. I think obviously Wardlow won a #1 contenders match effectively at that last pay-per-view Revolution, so he's just getting his opportunity here, which even I think is probably a bit too early in storyline because I'm expecting him to lose, and then what happens from there? Wardlow's another case, he's another story, but yeah, I don't know. With Swerve, he will come round. I think it's going to be Dynasty. Maybe they want to, give a pay-per-view. They want to punctuate it right at the end at the main event, and that's where it's going to happen. And I think that's fine. It clearly looks like that we're still on this collision course. They're making us wait, maybe giving Swerve the ever-present adversity so that no one can ever say that this was just handed to him, his token or whatever the case is, which is fine. They've maintained his stardom, his heat and everything. So yeah, he'll be on the show, I'm sure. Maybe waiting ominously when he sees Wardlow lose. But yeah, I think we're going all the way to Dynasty and maybe Dynasty.
Gerard, the interesting thing with the whole Joe Wardlow thing is obviously at the start of the year we had the rankings come back.
Mm-hmm.
Wardlow won a random 8-man match. To give my personal opinion on the match, I thought it was very scrappy and not necessarily needed. Didn't need to be 8 men. I know there were certain people injured, blah, 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 but he still could have had Wardlow, Archer, Hobbs, done. But we find ourselves where we are. Does this contradict the whole rankings thing, or does it still kind of, or is there a balance in terms of using both the rankings and the story and storylines to make certain things happen?
Yeah, I think there's a balance in there. Number one contender opportunities. I think if they do anything, they really give those people who maybe aren't in the rankings or who are lower an opportunity to catapult. Where I think the trade-off is that this number one contender isn't getting a pay-per-view title shot. He's getting a title shot on Dynamite. Right. I think that's the trade-off. And I'm okay with that. It's unfortunate if you're following the arc for Wardlow because they gave him a very fast ascension and he's going to descend as fast as he ascended. With that said, I'm glad that they're doing this now. This gets that out of the way so we can focus back on Swerve again. And so if anything has happened in this, Swerve is like officially the good guy now. He managed to tell the people, I won't let you down, like all the things that a good guy should say. And so that's exciting to see. He's had everything else but the official good guy blessing. But I think that to answer your question, it's a good mixture. And it puts somebody else in the mix while we're waiting for that number one contender to get a title shot. And that title shot should happen at the pay-per-view.
Brilliant stuff. Moving away from AEW, but we speak about Swerve and him being the good guy and the fans being behind him, very obviously, undoubtedly. This past weekend, we saw the release of the new WWE 2K24 game. As we celebrated when we found out that Bianca Belair was going to be is on the cover, graces the cover of the main cover of the game, or the special edition, cover of the game with Rhea Ripley. But unfortunately, as the game was actually released for pre-order and then released a few days later, we saw a lot of unfortunate commenting and whatever else on social media. Gerard, I know you kind of, you put out a post yourself on this whole thing. So just kind of take us through what transpired over this past few days and how it's made, the community feel and even yourself feel with all of this.
Sure. So it was on Thursday where WWE Games released on their socials just kind of the photo shoot that was being done for the 3 people who would host the cover. Of course, Cody Rhodes on the standard edition, Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley on the deluxe edition. And in the comment section of that is where some people, made very clear statements that said that Bianca Belair should not be there. Bianca Belair was on the right-hand side. Cody and Rhea were on the left, and they said, yeah, those 2 on the left, but not the other one. And then one person said, there's always got to be a black one. So this wasn't exactly, something that was clandestine. It was very clear. This is racism. And from there, what I thought was so cool is so many members of the WWE roster went on to post incredible things in support of Bianca. Several fans did the same. Several news outlets did the same. And, in terms of how I felt, it was just a reminder that, pro wrestling is usually the place where people from diverse backgrounds can find some degree of commonality and they can get behind a particular person. And it brings people together that normally wouldn't hang out. But it's clear that there are still some who think we are, you know, in the 1960s or the 1930s, and don't believe that people of color or women should ascend to these spots. And they also feel that if those spots are given to them, that they are given to them just to fulfill a quota or what have you. And my thought is, you know, these kinds of people exist everywhere. Unfortunately, you know, where I am here in the States, I do get to see some of that behavior. And it's really something, you know, being there's the old adage, certainly here in the States, that as an African American, you have to be twice as good as your European counterparts to get half of what they get. And I know I deal with that as a commentator, you know, where people often are surprised to see me in the commentary booth, or they'll hear me and then they'll see me and they'll go, oh, okay. You know, it's a reality. You know, as I'm driving to events, I still see Confederate flags waving high. These are the realities in which we live. To those people, I want to remind them that pro wrestling historically has been a reflection of what's happening in the community. So that's why if you go back, you'll see cringeworthy things like, you know, women just being special attractions and, you know, people glorifying apartheid and things of that nature. But as society has grown, so as the pro wrestling business. And the cool thing is that these days we are not going to stand for that kind of foolishness. We're going to stomp it out. We're going to show you why a Bianca Belair, who, if we go through her resume, anybody else with her resume would be on the cover of a magazine, video games, and whatever else they decide to get put on the cover of. I'm sure those people probably aren't watching this show because there's too much melanin here. And that's fine. The reality of it is there's going to be much more melanin found in your wrestling coverage, on your television screens, and the like. You're going to have to deal with it. And we are good. We're not good just to be black. We're not good just to fill a quota. We're good because we're really, really good at what we do. So unfortunately, you're going to have to deal with it. And before there's less of us, there will be more of us. So sorry, not sorry.
For sure, for sure. When you talk about numbers as well, it reminds me of course, you know, February was Black History Month in the US as well, and it reminds me of the collage or number of collages that Brian F. Photo put out last month as well, and you know there were 12 separate collages. Each of those probably had, you know, at least 50 to 60 different people on each one.
Yeah.
And every time I look at it, and when I first saw it and when I posted it and all the rest of it, and almost every time I look at it, I think to myself, 5 years ago, there probably would have been about 3 images.
Facts.
At best.
Facts.
Now we're looking at 12. It is amazing to see just the difference, you know, 5 years has made. I remember having conversations, especially when starting this my page as well, just about, you know, how a lot of things that Black people are doing felt like tick boxing, and, you know, the arguments of the New Day kind of being, you know, or just a whole load of madness, basically, that we just didn't get or didn't understand, or were a little bit distant, you know, distance from. But now I can honestly say there is nothing within the higher, actually no, just in pro wrestling in general, where I'm looking at make the likes of Swerve, for example, your Bianca Belair, Bobby Lashley, Kofi Kingston, Big E, you know, so many of these other people, where I'm thinking to myself, oh, they're just doing this just to tick a box.
Right.
It actually all feels so genuine, just based on that person's talent, hard work, commitment, their willingness to do whatever it is that they need to do. Now, that's not to say that the whole notion of them having to work twice as hard isn't there. I believe that's still very much there. But at the same time, you know, when we joke about the fact that we call the North American Championship the African American Championship, I don't even think that's a thing where it's like, oh yeah, let's reserve this for the Black people. It's literally just happened to where so many of these guys, your Wesleys, you know, and Carmelo Hayes and all the rest of it, have just been that great at what they do, that it just made sense for them to hold that title and do what they needed to do in order to then raise their profile further. You know, Mex, you know, we are also here in England, and we both know it's even harder to be in this space as a Black person. Just kind of give me your experience in terms of like how difficult it has been to reach where you're at now, being black. Has it felt that way, or is it just something you put in the back of your mind and just carry on?
Yeah, I tried to put it in the back of my mind. I mean, one of the reasons I started is because I was watching a lot of different guys and stuff. Gorilla Position stopped kind of posting and stuff. I found other content creators. Some of my favorite content creators in this space are middle-aged white men, but ultimately that's all I was seeing: middle-aged white men. And I was thinking, where are the black people that talk about wrestling? Surely it's not just us, because I'm sure we're watching it. I see black people in the crowd in the live shows and stuff. And it was just to kind of find your tribe, find people that are like you. I think with myself, the internal struggle has always been how much of myself can I truly be on screen. I was raised in quote unquote the hood. Tottenham, North London is the hood, but like I went to school and I went to university, and I would like to think I speak relatively well, so I don't sound like maybe what you would say a quote unquote hood person would sound like. And it's like when some people I've posted videos on TikTok and stuff, and people have said, oh, black people talk about wrestling, guys from the hood talking about wrestling, roadmen talking about wrestling. And it's just like, do you think just because we're black, like we are gangsters? Like, it's mad to think that. But Gerard's nodding. It's true. The parallel is there, but it's like it's not the case. You see what I mean? And it's unfortunate for me to say, when Gerard posted that in our group last week about the stuff. Remember, I was trying to get to the bottom of what caused all of this ruckus. And when I saw it was whatever was said under the actual post, I wasn't surprised, unfortunately. I wasn't taken aback. I was just thought, expected. Like, this is expected. And I guess the hood guy in me wanted to bite back. I wanted to say stuff, but I just thought, even now, what is the point, really? Like, I think the best thing to do is to show solidarity, that a lot of people did, whether it was wrestlers or content creators like ourselves did. But the wrestling analyst in me was looking at this, and I thought, you know what? How dare they say that? Because it can be argued that Bianca Belair in the kayfabe of WWE is the most successful out of all of them.
Of course.
It can be argued. Like, I think obviously you'd point at Cody. And even before this current Cody run, he had, intercontinental and tag team accolades and things of that nature. But Rhea Ripley, as much as we love Rhea Ripley, this is nothing to, kind of to draw out Rhea Ripley. Bianca Belair is surely a more successful WWE superstar than Rhea Ripley. So for us to kind of start saying she doesn't belong there, like, just solely from I'm a wrestling fan point of view, surely that isn't right. Like, she's one of the most accomplished people on the current roster. So yeah, I wanted to bite, like I said. I just thought, let me leave it, but the statement isn't even correct. Like, this is not tokenism. She fully deserves this.
And Gerard's gone. I think he had enough. And here's the other thing as well. Like, we talk about the kayfabe, and there's people will argue that whole kayfabe and it's not real. And obviously, they've probably still been picked because they're black, and they're giving them all of this because they're black and just to fill a quota and blah blah blah. But surely as well, and as we've seen in the past, before Kofi Kingston became the WWE champion, the big argument was, black people would never win the big one. So you saw the likes of Booker T and Mark Henry only win, the secondary world championship. Other guys would only win the Intercontinental or European championships and all the way, or always have tag team championships. But then to see that they trust someone enough, or not even just trust, but rate someone enough to give them all of these other accolades, as we were talking about Bianca specifically, longest reigning women's champion of the modern era, 3-0 at WrestleMania. Won every title she possibly could have on the main roster. Well, apart from the tag team, but all the singles titles on the main roster as well.
Won the Royal Rumble.
Won the Royal Rumble in a very short time as well. Surely that should make you think that this isn't just a tick box situation. It's more than that. But we are where we are, and as you said as well, like, it was no surprise to see comments like that. And as much as I was talking about, the fact that everything that guys are achieving or black people are achieving, men and women at the moment in wrestling, it was an unfortunate reminder that the world is still how the world is, if that makes sense. Yes, we've made progress in terms of the pro wrestling, in terms of how it's run, how it's worked out, blah, 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 but it's still within the world that we live in. And I think for me, that was the hardest part of it all. And that was the most frustrating part of it all, is that it was just a reminder of just how the world is. As much as we made progress in the pro wrestling scene, the world is still the world. And that was the hardest part for me. The beautiful thing was the showing of solidarity from so many other people, whether they be in WWE, outside of WWE. I think Thunder Rosa was one of them as well, who said something. But it also comes at another time where just recently we had Maxine Dupree also kind of dragged under the bus, kind of thing, where people were saying all sorts of stuff. She was booed at a WWE show. Bearing in mind she's not a heel, so it wasn't like the reaction that WWE wanted for her and all the rest of it. And people again had to show solidarity towards her. Here's a question. Do you think that with this whole Bianca Belair situation, including Maxine as well, that with Bianca, it wasn't just a black thing, but also a woman's thing? Because for me, I'm thinking, if that was maybe a Bobby Lashley undercover, Kofi Kingston, maybe, even Bianca's husband, Montez Ford, would it have got as bad a reaction? There would still be some negative comments regardless, but would it be as bad if it was a male compared to if it was a female?
Well, I would almost say yes to that, but Rhea was also on the cover. True. And those comments had no problem with Rhea and Cody.
True.
So it can't solely be a female thing. Rhea is kind of the deciding factor in that. And so it just reminded me that certainly in that instance, now that is not to say that there is not still an era of sexism among wrestling fans, because I totally believe that there is. But I think in this particular case, this was all the way an issue of racism as opposed to sexism, because those comments clearly said, hey, we'll take those two over this one, and it also very overtly said there always has to be a black one, right? So like those kinds of comments, they aren't exactly hiding it under the cloak of sexism. They're very clear about what they don't like.
Crazy.
Unfortunately, it's one of them things where I think you've been learning like sociology, and you list in terms of white male right at the top of your totem pole, and it'll go from there down to white female, black male, and black woman is at the bottom. Like it's like the two unfortunate things, even though it's not unfortunate at all. So it's one of them ones where, like I said, it's crazy to think about it, because even if you're just looking at it from a wrestling point of view, Bianca for sure has done more than Rhea in the WWE space, and the Cody one could even somewhat be argued. So she is more than deserving. Like, if funny enough, within the last year, especially if you're talking about like a game cover, the names you mentioned, the Kofi Kingston, the Bobby Lashleys, that's the ones that you're probably thinking, this is a bit of, just putting someone here for the sake of putting someone here.
Maybe.
This is deserved. So it's crazy for me to see those comments and people to think this, like, this is someone that you can see is coming. She's put her head down. She's worked hard. Like, she has done everything that this company have asked her to do in the ring, get better, put people over, all of this stuff. Carried the company nobly, no taint or stain on her name. and we're rewarding her. We're rewarding women with this position that has been coveted by men from the beginning of time, like of these games. And if you ever saw a woman on a game, it's probably just to sexualize her in some way, or now we've got here. This is the complaint that we're having. It's crazy. They put Becky, I can't remember which game it was,
with Roman Reigns
2024. They put Becky with Roman Reigns
19,
maybe, because it was just before 19. Her WrestleMania or so. It was just before when the man stuff was really kicking off, but she had not won any title apart from her one SmackDown title, right? Did anyone say anything about Becky being on the front?
No one said a word, mate.
And she hadn't done anything yet apart from the man, and started being a bit, over the top with the character. But here we are, someone that's a multiple WWE champion, longest reigning Royal Rumble winner. They're undeserving. Got a whole TV show.
Whole TV show. Always the one that does the appearances at sports events, community events, all sorts of stuff. The most popular one when it comes to young females and all of that. Yeah.
TKO brought her down to sign the deal. She was there ringing bells with all of these people. But this is the one that, because we always need a black, as they say. It's fine. Like, for me, I see you. I'd rather you be overt like that than covert and smile up in my face and all of that rubbish. So it's cool. If that's what you want, I see you. I know where the block button is as well. I'll block you. It's fine.
Yeah. Of course. To move things a little more to the positive, especially when it comes to our black females, we see so much success happening in ROH. Again, Gerard, I'll come back to you. You're very close to this stuff. Just give us a synopsis of what's happening. We've got Athena, holding a women's championship. And of course, we've got the ROH Women's Television Championship happening at the moment. Just give us an update on that tournament, and then move to what's happening with Athena.
For sure. So I get the feeling that what I'm about to share might be some spoilers. And I say that because I was actually there this weekend for the Ring of Honor taping and for Collision as well. So I'm realizing as I'm saying this, this probably hasn't aired yet. But that's cool. So you guys get to hear it first. We are in terms of the women's television tournament, we are down to the final four. 2 of the quarterfinal matches happened this past week, and I'm not sure when that'll air. It might air this week. It might air next week. But it was Diamante against Billy Starks and Mercedes Martinez against Abaddon. And so coming from that side of the bracket, Billy Starks defeated Diamante in what was a very spirited match. And then Diamante came and helped Mercedes Martinez defeat Abaddon. So on the left-hand side of the bracket, you're going to have Billy Starks taking on Mercedes Martinez. The winner of that's going to the final. On the right-hand side of the bracket, we already learned last week, of course, that Queen Aminata is in the semifinals. She defeated Taya Valkyrie. We also now know that Red Velvet defeated Layla Hirsch. So the semifinal match on the right-hand side will be Queen Aminata versus Red Velvet. The winner of that match will head to the finals, and I am assuming that the finals will take place at the Supercard of Honor on April the 5th. Speaking of that, this is probably also a spoiler since it just happened. It taped Thursday night, so it obviously hasn't aired yet, but Athena came to the middle of the ring, had a great match with the Woad. And so after that match, she basically said, I've beat everybody. Who else is there? I need a challenge. And of all of the people to come through is a former AEW women's champion, Hikaru Shida will be challenging Athena for the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship at Supercard of Honor the night before WrestleMania Saturday. So they're really gearing up for, I think, something big. I think that's going to be a great match. I honestly still think Athena's going to walk out as champion, but I think that's going to be quite the match. So again, our black stars are shining really, really brightly there in Ring of Honor. But again, we're going to see Queen Aminata versus Red Velvet in the semifinals of the ROH Women's Television Title Tournament, and one of them is going to the finals, which means we will have
guaranteed.
It's guaranteed that a black woman wrestler will be in the finals of this tournament. They will either face Billy Starks or Mercedes Martinez.
Phenomenal. We were talking about this last week, Gerard, just on the possibilities, and I can honestly say I would not have expected Red Velvet to beat Layla Hirsch. Did not expect that whatsoever. We talked about Aminata reaching the final, the strong possibility of that happening. So that's no surprise, but yet an amazing achievement. Whether she, whoever wins that semi-final gets to the final. Whether they win the final or not, I don't think it even matters. I think it's still a massive indication and the possibility that one of those ladies will hold that title at some point if they're not the first one. So that is phenomenal. Athena versus Shida. Whew.
That's going to cook. That's gonna cook.
I'm smiling from ear to ear because the night before that, I saw spoilers in the morning. I bought my ticket for Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor.
Oh, come on!
And then I woke up and I saw the leak, and then I was like, "Oh, this is amazing."
Yeah. It's gonna be epic. It's going to be epic.
Phenomenal, man, phenomenal. But this brings me also though to the consistent argument, and I was watching. I think it was the last episode of Wrestling's podcast, and it was brought up on that show as well, where we still see this kind of disconnect. I saw the poster for Supercard of Honor. You see all the champions that are on the picture, but you're like, the only person that's actually on Ring of Honor consistently week to week is still only Athena.
Yes.
You've got the tag team champions, Undisputed Kingdom. You see them on AEW every week. You've got the trio, six-man tag on ROH. The Bang Bang Gang, AEW every week. You've got, I was going to say Kofi Kingston, Eddie Kingston.
Eddie
Kingston. Very different Kingston. Eddie Kingston on AEW every week, feuding with Okada. And even with the Pure Championship, I don't remember the last time I saw Wheeler Yuta on ROH, unless it was one of the pay-per-views, the last one at the start of the year. And then as well, even the television champion,
Kyle Fletcher
on AEW every week. Mex, as I said, I saw the discussion on Wrestling's podcast. Like, what's happening, and two, how do we actually fix this? Are we going to get to a point where it's going to be fixed, or do you just feel as though AEW just don't care enough, or just don't think about it enough to do something about it?
So, spoiler of my own, with Gerard said something about this. I think we must be talking about this maybe about 2 weeks ago or so. And ROH should be being used as a developmental. It actually inspired me to make a video, so thank you, Gerard, for that. I've made the video. It should be out on the Wrestling's channel this week. This was meant to be in conjunction with obviously it's actually last week was 2 years since AEW took over Ring of Honor. So the video was meant to come out last week. I took a bit of time editing it. So yeah, the video will be out this week. And it's off the basis of, what are we doing here with this show? Like, we're putting together a Supercard of Honor, a Death Before Dishonor, and all of these like great pay-per-views where we're almost seeing some AEW people drop down to kind of support the level of the pay-per-view. But week to week, what is this show? And I think, we definitely need to go the direction of making it a developmental. Give it some order. All these free agents and unsigned talents, we don't need them. There is already, it's overstacked within ROH. I'm very happy to see Queen Aminata's progression. That's something I thought, but obviously she was on Ring of Honor before she got signed anyway. But I think that we're seeing that, okay, this is someone that they've clearly got a plan for, which is at the very least that's what they should have for their superstars. Athena as well has been doing some great work. I just think we need a way. Even how long is Athena going to be here? and be there as champion? Is there a plan to make her come up to the main roster? We're mentioning Mercedes Moné starts. Athena and Mercedes Moné should really be a given that we got straight out the bat sort of thing. Yeah, at some point this year. But we don't know, because ultimately the audience don't know what Ring of Honor is. Right now, Ring of Honor is nothing but, and I think I said this in the video, it's a glorified AEW dark. They're using the name of a prestigious, ground which kind of helped cultivate a lot of the talents we see in main events today, to basically use as just a third show to do, I don't know I can't even say developmental at this point. So I think it's Tony Khan has spoken about making it a developmental. Do it. Like, come on, bro. Let's do it. Let's give it some direction. He doesn't need to be the person at the, booking it. He will be, but he doesn't need to be. There's other people available. Let's really make, in this going into now this third year or this second year, should I say, of Ring of Honor being a thing. Let's give it some real direction and help cultivate, what's next. I said as well in the video, I'm giving spoilers of the whole entire video. I said as well in the video, like, for a company that are very proud of their beginnings, the minute someone comes on TV, they're like, oh, that's the AEW original. This is a homegrown AEW person. You've got the opportunity here to literally have an entire show full of homegrown people and, keep that factory, that train going of homegrown talents into your main roster as it was. But are we going to take it, or are we going to watch them get disgruntled and look for jobs in NXT?
So there's an interesting thing that happened, and I don't know if we're going to get to it or not, but I'm always intrigued by the language that the wrestlers use to describe certain things. And so one of the things that I'm sure everyone saw airing on Saturday Night Collision was and the wording of all of this is about to be very interesting. The AEW Collision debut of the Infantry, the Captain Sean Dean, and Bad News and Tattoos Carly Bravo. Now, personally speaking, I'm very glad to see this. I have known Carly Bravo literally since the first day of his career. I've been calling his matches those entire times. So to see that debut and to be there for that live was incredible. But he posted something, and what he posted, he used the words, "our debut on the main roster."
Wow.
Those were his words. Nobody else's words.
Wow.
His words. Okay. And now
perception.
So and again, they had been primarily featured on Ring of Honor television.
Of course.
And so when they made their debut, obviously doing it in Atlanta, the Atlanta crowd knew who they were, obviously, but they came out and they did it as an introduction to those who don't watch Ring of Honor, inserting themselves into the AEW Tag Team Title Tournament, which again is awesome. But the fact that when your wrestlers say that we have debuted on the main roster, you have told us what you believe Ring of Honor to be. And so, when you post it, not when I post it, not when the wrestlers refer to their step from Ring of Honor to AEW as debuting on the main roster, we have our answer, whether we want to accept it or not. We have our answer.
Wow. And it's not, the issue here isn't that ROH is or should be developmental or is perceived as developmental. The problem is there is no definition as to whether it is or not.
Correct.
That's the problem. It really should be. There just needs to be some kind of definition. And it's funny because even when Mex just said on Collision or AW, he said main roster. I was like, I don't know if that's the right words. But for the wrestler to say it, that's the right words.
Yes.
Because, again, as Mick says, and has said it every day, we probably should change the name of the title of this show. Perception.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that's how they perceive it, those who are in it know everything or know more, way more than us.
Sure.
If that's how they see it,
Right.
why don't we know it? Why are we told this? Why is it
There's a
not
part of
defined that that's
me.
what it is?
There's a part of me that feels like the powers that be, and I certainly could be overstepping when I say this, but it feels like the powers that be don't want to acknowledge that. So it's almost it again, and I've said this before.
They
This
don't want
reminds
to
me.
acknowledge what? Sorry.
They don't want to acknowledge Ring of Honor as developmental.
Oh, okay.
So it reminds me of WWE's purchase of ECW. They called it ECW.
Exactly that.
And they even tried to do a couple of ECW named pay-per-views, but this wasn't that. You know, everything about it said it wasn't that. Even if you had Joey Styles on the call, it wasn't that ECW. And so this is so similar. You've got the same commentary team from Ring of Honor. You have the same names of pay-per-views from Ring of Honor. You even have a thing called Honor Club. You have all of the names, but the substance of it isn't the same. And I think if they would acknowledge that this is what this is, it takes away the confusion and we can accept it for what it is. We can accept Ring of Honor for, okay, this is the developmental system for AEW. And then it sets our expectation. Now, what they're going to have to do, if they finally acknowledge that, is they're going to have to make the decision, is it right to keep our developmental space behind a paywall? There's a decision that has to be made there because on one hand, I mean, you could make the argument, perhaps you do, if you really want to see what the future of the business looks like, go pay to see it, invest in it. You could market it properly if you decide to do that. But the ambiguity is what makes people go, nah, I don't want to be, because you won't define what it is. You've defined AEW as all elite. All right. You've defined arguably Dynamite as your flagship show. You could argue Collision is your second show. We're clear that Rampage is somewhere down there because your other two shows are live and these are regularly taped. What have you left for us to perceive of these shows that get taped? And here's the thing. The reason why people keep calling it dark is because the match quality, and it's not necessarily fair. They do have some really good matches on Ring of Honor. So the match quality is better than that of Dark, but it's taped the same way Dark was. It doesn't get a dedicated hour. I'll just say this. Thursday night, when they taped Collision, the show started officially at 7:30. They started by taping some Ring of Honor matches on the front end. Then they did Collision. Then they did some Ring of Honor matches on the back end. The show ended at midnight. 4.5 hours for a dedicated 2-hour show of Collision, and then matches that were sparsed in there with Ring of Honor. If you were going to do a dedicated Ring of Honor show, let the people know. When they come into it, tape it separately so it feels like it's its own dedicated show and we can follow it, et cetera, et cetera. When you don't do those kinds of things, that's why people respond the way that they do.
My very last question on this as well. We also saw Shane Taylor in an amazing match against Daniel Bryan on Collision. Where's his space to be? Should he be in AEW? Should he be on Ring of Honor instead of this floating back and forth that he's doing at the minute? What are we actually doing? Like, it's encouraging that he's had the matches he's had, and against who he's had them against: Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, John Moxley, and the rest of the BCC. But yet, what are we doing?
Can I say, no one should get offended when I say this, Danielson is my absolute guy. So when I saw this match, as great as a match as it was, I was thinking, Danielson, why are you selling for this guy? Why are you selling for this guy? Because of the way they're now going to treat him.
Right.
I profile
right.
To Danielson. It's like, what are we noting that he's going toe to toe with these guys, or they just basically fulfilling an obligation to give him a match every couple of weeks. The likes of Shane Taylor, to answer your question, should be, I would probably say, if handled, like we're kind of putting out here, he should be Ring of Honor champion at the very least. At the very least, he should be a Ring of Honor champion. Even the TV stuff on the trio stuff he's done, like this is where he should be. If we're going to give Ring of Honor direction, let a real Ring of Honor steward kind of carry us into that next era. Be the top guy over there, and then by the time he's gonna come to the so-called main roster in AEW, he's ready for like that Continental crown. He can go on and have, at least in the classic, he can have some really good matches with all of these guys. And if he's gonna fall short, he falls short. Then the TNT titles there, those kind of mid-level titles where he can keep establishing himself are all there. But right now, it upsets me because as good as he is, as entertaining as he's still got to give, because we've seen his stuff before this era of AEW Ring of Honor. Like, I'm just thinking, Danielson will do this for anybody, and that's the great thing about Danielson. But how are they now going to make this make sense for Shane Taylor is the question. Like, otherwise, it's just Daniel selling his butt off for someone that in a couple of weeks is now probably not going to do much of anything and lose to someone lesser than Danielson. So I just like to see it kind of followed up with something that establishes him. Okay, he lost to Danielson, but this is still an important person.
It's interesting. There's so much more to talk about. We still didn't even talk about what the one thing that everyone's talking about, which is The Rock and Cody. But
that's so crazy.
Everyone else is talking about it. And I really wanted to kind of get into, well, not even too much, but even the gauntlet match for the Intercontinental Championship. I'm going to say this real quickly, actually. It was just really nice to see Ricochet do what he did. That first match, the first part of the gauntlet with him and JD McDonough was, for me, exactly what both of them needed.
Yeah.
Just to show what they can do. Neither of us, I don't think everyone really expected either of them to get to the end and win the match, but for them to be able to have as much time as they did and have as great as a contest as they did was just beautiful.
Did you see the comment I left you on Instagram?
Yes, I did.
The video that WWE posted of Ricochet and Samantha Irvin coming in for the show together. And literally, I had a light bulb moment. I said, she might be the key to unlock Ricochet, But of course, this is crossing from being a host to, being an announcer to now being an on-screen talent in that dimension. But I saw them walking together and I thought she could be the key,
I mean, they touched on it, obviously, with the whole Logan Paul feud with Ricochet as well.
Yeah.
It was, it was there. So there's still a way to do it without her having to leave the announce table.
Right.
You know what I mean? And not necessarily be his manager or valet or however you want to put it. So it's possible. And I think it is a very good idea because her popularity has skyrocketed over the last 12 months. Skyrocketed. Absolutely. So it definitely would be a very good look and a very good idea to look into that as well. But before we start getting into another hour discussion, this has been WrstlXtra. You are watching on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see when this guy Mex puts out all his reactions to AEW, WWE, and everything else in between, including the AEW Ring of Honor video that he's about to put up. But that will actually be on the Wrestling's channel.
Yes.
Don't forget to follow that one on YouTube as well. Like and subscribe, of course, to see when the man then put out all of their shows on a weekly basis. And everything else that they're doing in between. You can find Mex on Instagram at WrestleManiac.uk and on Twitter, WrestleManiac UK. Sorry, on X. Sorry, Elon. Sorry, Mr. Musk. You can find this guy, Gerard Bonner, on all things Bonafide. You can also find him on his own show, The Faction Show. You can find him on WWT Live. You can find him commentating for Ashe Wrestling, Southern Honor Wrestling, IWE, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, broadcasting for All Caribbean Wrestling. If I missed anything else, and keep going. There's so many. There's so many. You can find him chatting with Tony Schiavone if you're at AEW show at some point. You know, the omnipresent Gerard Banner. He's everywhere. You can find me, A Dazzle, on Instagram on Black Wrestling Lights and on X BWA Dazzle. And of course, you can find us all three of us here on WrstlXtra every single week. Until then, see you next time, guys.
See you later.